She watched by my cradle through long sleepless nights. She taught me to pray as she knelt by my side.
She guarded my childhood and all through the years. She echoed my laughter, she counted my tears. In the arms of my mother, I came to believe that God sent an angel to watch over me.
She taught me the meaning of courage and faith. She taught me to live with the Lord as my strength.
She taught me to follow the pathway He marked. She guided my steps when the journey grew dark. And I know there were dangers that I could not see, but God sent an angel to watch over me. She taught me to serve with a spirit that sings.
She taught me to seek after heavenly things.
And because of her love and her kindness and care, because of the place that I hold in her prayers, and because of her goodness, I still believe that God sent an angel to watch over
me.
Good morning and happy Sabbath to all. That was the first time I heard that song, and the message was just so good. I was just thinking of myself as a mother to my kid. And Brother Jermaine just said that I've been here 2 years, and this is my first time to speak in front of you. And I was telling Pearl, you know, I think like when you're about to go home, they give you a chance to speak. So I entitled my message this morning, "It Pays to Play by the Rules." So whether we like it or not, we are governed by sets of rules, whether rules of government, rules in the home, rules in our workplace. It can be traditions imposed on our society on what is acceptable or what is not. Rules define how people behave in relation to authorities and to other people. In Japan, rules are very important. And for some reason, I find that it tends to be easier for Japanese to willingly abide by rules. Even in very difficult times, like, for example, during the Tohoku incident, when people can be striving for their own survival, I was so impressed to see people even lining up for a bucket of water. A friend of mine, a Filipina friend of mine in Tokyo, told me that just right after the Tohoku incident, when there was scarcity of water, each family was entitled to buy only a certain number of liters of water per day. But to make sure that they had enough water, they don't run out of water, she asked the son, who is half Japanese, to buy separately. So in effect, they could have a double portion. And no one would really know. But the boy thought it was not a good idea. So people react differently to rules, and rules can change how we behave. And it's something that and if it's something that restrains our actions, something that we are accustomed to, sometimes we don't welcome new rules. It's like imposing rules to a teenager who got used to doing things differently. It becomes difficult for him to obey or even take advice. Societies sometimes have the wrong notion of freedom. Sometimes we think we are free just to do anything, that anything goes. That, in the experiences of many democratic governments, they have difficulty governing people because people can just go out in the streets and protest, go on strike or boycott or seek their own independence if the rules are not convenient to them. And sometimes we become selective. We choose the rules that are convenient to us. And if it's not convenient, then we try to find a way to get around it. Right? In Genesis chapter 4, verses 3, it tells us about the story of Cain and Abel, about the offerings of Cain and Abel. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but not on Cain's. And so Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted?" So this story emphasizes that if we want to gain the favor of the Lord, we need to do what is right. We need to do what He tells us. So today's message is based on the writing of Paul, and we have been studying Paul's writings in our Sabbath school. But the verse that Brother Jermaine just read is from 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 5, and let me just read it again. It says, "Anyone who competes as an athlete does not receive the victor's crown except by competing according to the rules." I guess Paul at this time was writing while he was in prison, and I think he was already anticipating his martyrdom. And he was writing his final word of encouragement to Timothy, which would also benefit the church. From our Sabbath school lessons, when we have been studying about Paul's writings, and even this morning we were studying about Paul's ministry in Thessalonica, we knew that Paul takes into context, the things, what is going around the area where he's doing his ministry. So Paul, in his letter to Timothy, used the athletic metaphor because he knew that to the Romans and to the Greeks, sports was very important. To the Romans, it was a major source of entertainment. For the Greeks, it was a means of self-achievement. They thought that a healthy body is associated with a healthy mind. And I guess we believe the same. And the gymnasiums, at a very early age, the Greek boys would enroll in gymnasiums, which were literally found in almost every town. And these gymnasiums were the boys train, and the stadiums where they compete, you can readily see them in Greco-Roman cities. So this is how important sports are to the Greeks and the Romans. In fact, the games were so important that even states, when they are engaged in wars, they had to call a ceasefire so that the games will go on uninterrupted. Because in fact, many of the athletes, the Greek athletes, were also soldiers. So Paul writes in this context, a context of a culture that was well acquainted and who takes seriously sports or the Olympic Games. We know the origins of the Olympic Games. This coming July 27, if you're a sports enthusiast, this July 27 to August 12, the Summer Olympics is going to be held in London. And I'm sure many athletes have trained for months or maybe even years to compete in this once every 4-year world sporting event. So let's study 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 5, and let's learn the traits of an athlete. What is Paul trying to impress in this verse? First, an athlete must make a decision to join the race. In ancient Greece, a contestant to the Olympics has to be a citizen. So in fact, he has to present a birth certificate to prove his citizenship. I think that goes the same for if you join like competitions. I remember in university, when I used to play for like the varsity, you have to prove that you're actually enrolled in that university, and you're not just like someone who was just picked up from somewhere just to beef up the team. So you have to prove your citizenship, or you have to prove you're actually enrolled in this university. In the spiritual realm, our acceptance of Christ as personal Savior practically begins our race to heaven. But as we run the race like athletes, we have to strive for mastery. I think this is one important trait that we have to remember in parallel to an athlete. An athlete has to strive for mastery. All Greeks, before they join the actual competition, have to train for 10 months. So they have to go through rigid and prescribed exercise, go into strict diet to prepare themselves for the competition. And at the end of the 10 months, they have to swear before Zeus that he had kept faithfully these requirements, and if not, he would be disqualified. So an athlete that has his eye on the prize and who strives to be good in his sport is a man under discipline and self-denial. So what do we mean by this? The athlete must keep his schedule of training and let nothing interfere with it. There will be days when he would maybe like to drop his training and maybe relax his discipline. Sometimes you wake up not feeling very well, you would in the morning, or maybe you would like to extend your sleep a little bit more. But an athlete who is dedicated and who has his eye on a prize, who wants to be good in his sport, will not allow himself to miss his training. There will be pleasures and indulgences that he would like to allow himself, but he must refuse them. The athlete who would excel knows that he must not let nothing interfere with that standard of physical fitness that he has set for himself. So every athlete knows that occasional jogging, maybe Monday you jog for a few minutes, Tuesday you don't, Wednesday, maybe Thursday I jog again, does not prepare him to compete in the Olympics. To compete on a winning level, he must daily discipline his body through exercise, diet, and proper rest. In like manner, there must be discipline in our Christian life. Often, we want things the easy way. Why give yourself a hard time when you can have it easy, right? And there are times when the right thing is the hard thing, and there are times that we are tempted to relax our standards. But Paul admonishes us in 1 Timothy chapter 4 verse 7 to discipline ourselves for the purpose of godliness. And godliness does not come to us overnight. There are no shortcuts. It takes effort to achieve godliness. And the only way to do that is to daily discipline ourselves and spend time with the Word of God and in prayer. But how much do we really spend time to study His words and know what He wants us to do? In 1 Corinthians chapter 9 verses 25 to 27, let me just read from my notes. It says, everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever. Therefore, I do not run like a man running aimlessly. I do not fight like a man beating the air. No, I beat my body and make it a slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize. So self-discipline is necessary in order to be a winning spiritual athlete. We must not let our evil desires dominate us or deviate us from our goal of achieving godliness or Christ likeness. And as I said, it doesn't come overnight. It takes a lot of effort. But Paul again says in 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 1 that it's possible only by being continually strengthened with the grace that is in Christ Jesus. So an athlete has to strive for mastery, but he has to strive lawfully. It's important that an athlete observes the rules. So after the discipline and there's some rules that goes into training, then there goes the contest proper, and there are rules that goes with the games. So if an athlete can only win if he participates in the game and if he follows the rules. Otherwise, then he's disqualified. There are many accounts in Olympic history. So I was trying to browse the internet to look into like scandals in the Olympics. And I'd like to share some of the incidents and consequences of like not following the rules. Not following the rules could be intentional and foul. For example, certain athlete named Sloan. In a long-distance marathon, he won a silver, but later was found that he rode the bus, and he just came out of a forested area a few kilometers to the finish line. So I was reading, I said, like, how can he think about that? Like, ride the bus for a few stretch of the, and then just came out of the forest a few kilometers to the finish line and then get a silver. But of course, then he was disqualified when they later found out. Tonya Harding arranged for an attack of her U.S. closest rival in figure skating, Nancy Kerrigan, just a month before the 1994 Winter Games. And a Swedish equestrian, Bertil Sandrum, in the 1932 Summer Olympics was demoted from silver to last when they found out she was clicking to the horse to encourage it. I did not know that that's not allowed, like to encourage your horse to like maybe run faster or to do well. So he was demoted from silver after finding. Of course, he said that it was the saddle that was making the creaking noise. And in 1912, Jim Thorpe, an American athlete, was stripped off of his gold medals in decathlon and pentathlon when they found out that he actually played professional minor league basketball 3 years before the Olympic Games. There are times that we know and we are actually fully aware that we're breaking the rules. It's a decision that we make to actually violate. Not following the rules could be because maybe we listen to the wrong advice. In sports, I don't know if you're familiar with ice skating marathon. A skater named Kramer was disqualified after winning the Olympic gold. So what happened? It's usually a 25-lap race. And towards the end, I'm not very familiar with the rules of the game, but somewhere towards the end of the race, of the 25-lap race, they have to sort of like maybe change lanes. And there are rules on how you should change lanes. And with 8 laps remaining, the referee ruled that he incorrectly changed lanes. So during the interview, he said that he was thinking of actually going to the outer lane, but he heard the coach shout inner lane, and so he thought that probably he was right, and so he followed the what he heard, the advice of the coach. He did not realize until he reached the finish line with a world-breaking record that he was disqualified. And so what could have been a record in Olympic history, as they said, turned out to be like just a historical footnote. He listened to the wrong advice. It's natural for us to listen to a coach, take advice of a coach, a preacher, an elder, but when we are running our own race, we have to know how to compete by ourselves. Not following the rules could be, sometimes it's just the right thing to do at that time. Another athlete in gymnastics named Raducan, she was the first to be stripped off of a medal after testing positive of a substance from a medicine because she took it to treat fever. So the team physician actually made her take some medicine for colds. And later, she was tested positive and she was stripped off of this medal. It felt it was just the right thing to do because she was not feeling well. In the Bible, there are instances like this. It felt it was right to protect the Ark of Covenant from falling. Remember in 2 Samuel chapter 6, verses 6 to 7, it tells about the account of the Ark being brought to Jerusalem. They, instead of usually like carrying the Ark on the shoulders, they put it on a cart, and the oxen that was pulling the cart stumbled, and Uzzah, with every good intention, maybe to protect the Ark from falling, touched it, and he was punished and instantly died. It felt it was the right thing to do, but he broke the rules and was punished. We have to follow the rules or face penalties. But in the first place, we have to know what the rules are. Otherwise, we don't know what we're actually breaking. And this is grave because we can be running or racing aimlessly. There are many instances in the Bible where those who broke the rules or God's instruction faced grave consequences. In Numbers chapter 20, verses 7 to 8, it tells about Moses. God told Moses to speak to the rock before the eyes of the Israelites, and water will pour out of the rock. But we know what Moses did. Moses struck it twice, and it actually cost him his entry to the promised land. In Joshua chapter 6, verses 17 to 19, after the Israelites conquered Jericho, Israel actually lost many of their soldiers and got defeated when Achan hid some valuables from the spoils of war. If you read Joshua 6, verses 17 to 19, God said, "The city and all that is in it are to be devoted to the Lord. Keep away from the devoted things so that you will not bring about your own destruction by taking them away. Otherwise, you will make the camp of Israel liable to destruction and bring trouble on it." So that was just exactly what happened when Achan tried to heap some of the spoils of war. At Eden, the rule was not to eat the fruit of the tree of good and evil. But disobedience had a great cost on humanity. In Genesis 3, verse 16 to 19, we can read God told, as a consequence of breaking God's instruction, women had to be in pain in childbirth. To Adam, he said that now you have to toil and sweat in order to eat. So rules are very important. And I just outlined also, I said I was thinking, why are rules important? And maybe because I was more like an athlete back in my university days, I was making some parallelism with, like, why are rules important in sports. So rules are important because it sets the conditions of fair play. The game rules are laid out so that the players and the referees are guided by the same rules. It establishes structure or predictability so that both the players and those officiating the games are guided accordingly, so that you don't think that you are judged differently or unfairly. God makes it clear what is wrong and what is right, what we should do and what we should avoid. And God has revealed His word in the Bible. It's just up for us to know about them, and when we know what they are, we make a decision to follow. And the good thing is that His rules do not change, unless unlike in sports. Sometimes over time the rules change. Rules are important because it regulates behavior and establishes order. God is a God of order. Rules allow us to live in harmony with Him and the fellow men. We don't just do things whimsically without regard of the consequences to other people. Usually, at the start of every competition, you take this oath of sportsmanship, and the oath would always include like swearing to follow the rules of the game. Rules are set, but we make the decision to follow. God gave us the freedom to choose. So we are responsible for our actions, so that if we sow goodness, it can bring you good harvest. But if you decide to do otherwise, to hurt or trample others, like fouling other people, God will make us accountable. There are consequences for our disobedience. Rules are important because it serves to protect the players. In sports, there are such calls by referees as fouls. In basketball, I don't know if any one of you plays basketball. If you bodily restrain or hit someone who is dribbling the ball, a foul may be called, and then the other team gets a free throw. In volleyball, the two teams play separately on two sides of the court, and the net is set to separate the teams, so that you're not actually allowed to overextend your arms over the net as if to hit the other person almost, like straight to the face. In soccer, a player is given a yellow card. If the referee thinks that one person must maybe trying to intentionally hit the leg or to push the other player. So rules serve to protect the players. The Ten Commandments teaches us to have a better life with Him and with other people. By honoring our parents, God knew that we can receive better instruction and guidance. By not coveting others' goods, God knew that living simply within our means will save us problems of debt. By not coveting others' wife, God knew that if we remain loyal, we can keep our families intact and raise happy children. By keeping the Sabbath, God knew that we needed to rest and renew ourselves spiritually and physically. So God's laws provide the basic foundation for actually most of our civil laws: not to steal, not to kill, honor our parents. And it assures us that we are protected from consequences when they are violated. Another thing, rules are important because it tells us actually how to win the game. Every sport has its own rules, and it tells us how a score is made and how you can actually be penalized. So like in volleyball, each team has to compete, and whoever first scores 25 gets the set. So if you have a game, a set of 5, the first team that wins 3 sets wins the game. In basketball or maybe football, the game is timed, so that whoever gets the highest points when time is up wins the game. In sports like swimming or marathon, you have to be fast to get to the finish line at the shortest time possible to win the game. So like the athletes, we are running a race. But the good news with winning the race to heaven is that we are not racing against others. So we don't have to run faster than others or score more than the others. We are in fact embarking on a journey along with other people, so that we don't have to engage in foul play to get ahead of others. No need to compare ourselves with others, because we are actually competing on our own. but we can encourage each other along the way. In Joshua chapter 6 verses 2 to 20, it tells about God's instruction to Joshua on how they could defeat Jericho. And they simply had to follow, and then victory was theirs. So what did they have to do? One, have the priests, 7 priests, carry trumpets in front of the ark. Second, march around the city once for 6 days. Third, on the 7th day, march around the city 7 times with the priests blowing the horns. And fourth, give a loud shout when they hear the long blast on the trumpets, and the city walls will collapse. All they needed to do was just follow the rules. So a Christian, again, is to strive for mastery, yet he must strive according to the law given to him, and he must strive lawfully so that he may be crowned victorious. In ancient Greece, the Olympic victory was the highest honor for a mortal. We know, like Greek mythology, they have so many patron gods. Like for the Olympics, they have like Zeus. So in ancient Greece, the Olympic victory was a great honor for a mortal, and the winner gets a wreath. It's made of branches of a sacred plant of a patron god. A feast is held in their honor, and they receive monetary rewards, and they have lifetime privileges like free meals. That would be very nice, free meals for a lifetime. And the crown was symbolic and sacred honor, and was believed to transfer mystical powers to the athlete. And the greatest prize actually to an Olympic victor was placing his statue in Olympia. It's like a holy sanctuary dedicated to their patron gods. So winning was everything to them. And in the first 13 Olympiads, there was actually just one event. Now we have so many events in Olympics. But for the first 13 Olympiads, there was actually only one event. And so there was only one winner. So that coming in second or third did not count and were not even recorded. But the good thing with our race to heaven is that there's no first, second, or third. We just have to all be finishers. Let's just make sure we are finishers of the race. And like running in the Olympics, only the determined achieve their goals. An Olympic medal do not go to someone who is out of shape and who has neglected his training. So we aim to get to the finish line and win that crown that lasts forever. But we cannot achieve this if we are half-hearted, if we are out of shape, and we do not do anything to actually prepare ourselves. Our aim in competing is to win a prize. And as Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians chapter 9:24, we have to run in such a way that we might win. In the Christian race, I was saying earlier, we don't compete against each other. We can all win, and we can encourage each other at times when we want to relax our standards or relax our discipline. So rules are there for a purpose, but we can only benefit from them if we follow them. And rules allow us to submit to an authority that has set it. And by honoring the rules, we are recognizing the authority of the one who has set it. And if we understand why they have been set, and that we realize that it pays more to follow than to actually break them, what should stop us from following them? As Paul's advice to Timothy, we should be like disciplined athletes who obey the rules, and then we can claim the victor's crown. In this world, we are faced with many rules, and sometimes they can be conflicting. It's important for us to know where it differs and to choose to honor the laws of God over man. We face penalties or consequences for disobedience, but the Lord provides us a way to be restored in Him. Like what happened to the Israelites in Joshua chapter 7 verses 13, because of what Achan did. The Lord told Joshua, go consecrate the people. Tell them there are devoted things among you. You cannot stand against your enemies until you remove them. So we have to consecrate ourselves, remove any sinfulness. We have to discipline ourselves for the purpose of godliness. I'd like to read Psalms 119. The whole chapter actually is about obedience. But let me just read verses 33 to 37. It says, teach me, O Lord, to follow your decrees, then I will keep them to the end. Give me understanding, and I will keep your law and obey it with all my heart. Direct me in the path of your commands, for there I find delight. Turn my heart toward your statutes and not toward selfish gain. Turn my eyes away from worthless things. Preserve my life according to your word. Like an athlete who is determined to win and achieve his goal, let us set our eyes focused on heaven. Like the athlete who strives for mastery, let us discipline ourselves for godliness, and let us strive lawfully. Let us consecrate ourselves and remove any sinfulness. And in loving obedience to his word, let us aim to be like him, so that from his throne he can call us up to receive the crown, a crown that lasts forever. God bless us all.